What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Monte Poker episode 5. My apologies for the delayed release. I normally get these videos out to you on Thursdays, but unfortunately we got food poisoning this week, so that set us back a couple days. We'll be on schedule for next week though. You've been waiting long enough, so I'm not going to delay it any further. Let's jump right into it. Start off the night buying in for $300. We've seen a couple hands at this point and missed most flops. There's a couple of limpers trying to get into this pot when we look down at pocket eights in the small blind. I decided to raise it up a little bit. Don't want to play this hand 4 or 5 ways, so we go 22. Our opponents take some time to think about it, and we have one villain putting in the call. That price is in villain number 2, so we have 2 people putting in the call. One more person gets out of the way, but then the 4th person calls anyway. Maybe I should have gone a little bit bigger, but I don't really want to get this pot too big with pocket eights. At least we have something to play for now. The board comes out for deuce 10 rainbow. We have second pair on this board here. I'm going to go ahead and fire again since we were the pre-flop aggressors. We definitely have some ace 10s in our range here. Also, if nobody hit the 10, they're probably just going to fold here to a good size C bet. So I decided to fire out for $60 into a pot that had about 80. The big blind folds immediately, and then the under the gun player goes into the tank for a little bit here. And after thinking it over a little bit, he decides to just shove on us. 4th player in the hand folds. Now the action's back to me. I'm not really sure what he has at this point. I'm thinking it could just be ace 10 and he wants to take the pot down now and doesn't want to see another hand, doesn't want to see another card. He could also just be shoving with 2 face cards. Either way, I don't think I want to put this call in. We're losing to a 10. If he has a pair beating the board, we're losing to that as well. And he could easily have a set, thinking I have an overpair trying to go for value here. Either way, I don't think our pair of 8s is good. It's strictly a bluff catcher if he has 2 face cards. And even if he is bluffing, there's 2 streets to come. I think I'm just going to let this one go. With the bet sizing we used, we basically encouraged anybody that had a hand to repop us. I don't think he thinks I'm bluffing in this spot, so I have to put him on a monster. I'm going to go ahead and let it go. And this isn't me reloading 100 more. Next hand brings us onto the hijack. We have 240 in our stack. It looks like we probably took a $30 loss somewhere, so we probably saw a flop and miss. A couple people limp in, and then the person in MP1 decides to raise it up to 17. We look down at the ladies and decide that is not enough. There are too many people that are going to come into this hand if we just flat call, so I decide to raise it, make it 30 to go. I expect our neighbor to the right to call, maybe one of the limpers to call as well if they can. So a couple people fold. Our buddy Jeff down the lane puts in the call, player to his left folds, and then the original raiser goes into the tank for a little bit, but also eventually puts in the call. We're off 3 ways to this flop, which brings us 8-4 deuce rainbow. The action quickly checks over to us. I don't expect either of the players to hit this board here, so I'm going to keep the sizing kind of small. We go 45 into a pot of 80, and they both quickly fold. Probably could have gone a bit smaller on this board, but rather win a small one than lose a big one. Moving on to the next hand, we have 318 in our stack on the big blind. It seems like a pretty limp heavy day. The action keeps going around and everyone's trying to get into these pots for $3. We're in the middle of the pay period, so people are being a little bit stingy with their money, but that's totally fine because the fireman down the lane decides to raise it up for us, makes it $15 to go. Small blind gets out of the way and the action's over on me, and I look down at the Cowboys. People have been folding on this table to $15 open, so I don't want to go too big here. We make it 43 total to try and isolate this heads up, and that seems to be the right amount. Everybody gets out of the way and the fireman calls. Just the 2 of us going to the flop, which comes jack 8 10 2 clubs. This board is way too connected for my liking here, but I'm going to go ahead and check it over to our neighbor because we are still beating the board. I want him to take a stab at this with any sort of jack X, maybe even 10x, and then I'm just going to repop him afterwards. He quickly takes the bait. He bets $40 here, and I quickly re-raise him to 100. Almost as soon as I get that 100 in, he announces all in. I played with this particular player a handful of times at this point now, and I know he's going to do this with a lot of his big hands, but also a lot of his draws. I think our hand's too big here to let go, so we go ahead and put in the call, and he instantly shows us the bad news. He's got pocket jacks and flop to set. We're in need of a lot of help here. The turn comes a 9 of spades, which gives us some outs to a queen, and then the river brings us the 7 of clubs. We got ridiculously lucky. We got runner straight on the board. It's a jack high straight, so we're gonna go ahead and chop this up. I really thought our hand was good pre-flop, to be honest. I normally don't snap all in like that. I was convinced that we just needed to hold with our kings, but we were behind all the way. I'm very happy to be chopping in this situation. Off to the next one. We have 310 in our stack on the small blind. Once again,
again. We have a couple limpers as per usual, and then we have somebody raise up to 15. The button calls 15, and it looks like I'm gonna go ahead and squeeze again. Looks like we're gonna go with a bet sizing of around $60 here. I probably want 1 or 2 callers, ideally one of the players that already put money in, not anybody else left to go. We haven't looked at our hand yet, but I'm assuming I have a big pocket pair here. Jack, tens, queens, kings, aces, potentially ace king, ace queen, and yep, we got the ladies again. A lot of pocket pairs today. Not sure what we did to be so fortunate, but we've been getting some great hands today. The action's back on the button. We got 1 caller, and the button decides to just put it all in. He only has about $90 behind, so this jam here is pretty standard. If his hand was good enough to jam with after somebody raised, I'm not sure why he didn't just raise himself and try to isolate, but that's none of our business. So after we put in the call, the fireman also puts in the call, and we're off to see the flop here, which comes out 8 of clubs, ace of clubs, 3 of clubs. And of course, we are not holding a club ourselves. There's an ace out there and 3 clubs, so I went ahead and checked it over to the fireman. He then decided to fire out for $80. I do not like the spot we're in. I'm very inclined to call here because I'm pretty sure I'm ahead of him. The problem is I don't have a club, so I really can't. I decided to throw it away here, and the board runs out 10 of spades, 2 of clubs. The button shows us pocket A's for a flop set, and the fireman shows pocket 9s. So I was right, we were ahead, but fortunately he was holding the 9 of clubs, and the river club gave him the flush. Start the next hand with 176 under the gun and look down at ace queen offsuit. There's $10 in the pot. We have a couple limpers coming along when the small blind decides to bump it up to $18. Once again, too many limpers for our liking. We're going to re-raise this. We've also had a lot of big pocket pairs pre-flop, and we've been showing them, and we've been getting to showdown with. So our table image is looking pretty solid. I don't mind popping it this time without a made hand. Our raise is too much for the limpers. The action gets over to the big blind again, and he reaches for some green chips here. Started getting worried that we might get re-raised here. We have a great hand, but I definitely don't want to call a $100 to $200 bet pre-flop with it, but he elects to just put in the call. We're off heads up to the flop here, and I'm looking down at my stack. I have about 120 left into a pot that has about 130 in it. I think I've mentally decided that if the player checks, I'm just going to jam on him. The board comes out 4-9 jack with 2 spades. The only thing that I think I'm really going to get called by here is ace jack or potentially the nut flush draw. Our opponent checks it over to us, and I just go ahead and slide them all in there. He doesn't look too thrilled by this and enters the tank. After about a minute, he puts in the call. Turn brings us the 2 of clubs, and the river comes a 6 of clubs.
You got it. Nobody said.
Ace queen.
You got it, Mark. Wait, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh,
nothing.
no, almost.
Oh, ace queen. That's about to be a drink.
Busted.
You had a lot of outs. Wow, what a sweat. I did not expect ace high to be good in this situation. We were super fortunate that the opponent called with the draw and completely whiffed. Any 10 or any spade would have given him a straight or the flush. It's just one of those days where we seem to be getting really lucky, and I'm not complaining. All right, so it's been about an hour since that last hand. We scooped that pot, and then we lost a couple. We're down to 258. We raised in middle position to $15, and we have 4 callers going to the flop. $60 in the pot, and the board comes out king of spades, jack of spades, 3 of hearts. We flop a gutter ball. Not really much to see or do here. We've missed a bunch of flops up to this point and getting tired of it, so I decided to just fire out here for 55. We've been raising pre-flop and folding this entire time. Anytime we miss the board, I haven't really been taking too many stabs at a lot of pots since earlier in the session, so I decided to go for one here, and we were fortunate enough to get it through. So it's been about an hour since that last hand that we scooped. We had about 300 and some change after that hand. We're down to 250. Saw a couple flops and missed as per usual. I have king jack offsuit in the big blind. I usually raise this hand, but we've been missing a lot of boards, and I just want to disguise the strength of my hand if we do end up hitting our king. The flop comes out king 4. Could not have asked for anything better. We are worried about the clubs, and I'm going to go ahead and check it to try and set a trap here regardless. Under the gun player fires out out for 15 and gets called by under the gun +1. The action gets around to me, and we're gonna go ahead and raise here. Like I mentioned before, there are 2 clubs out there that we don't necessarily like. Our opponent most likely hit a king here, or one of them is on the flush draw, so I'm gonna charge them the maximum to chase it. And if they do have a king, well then we're beating everything except king queen and ace king, which I assume would have raised pre-flop. Under the gun puts in the call, and then under the gun +1 folds, so we're headed to the turn heads up. The turn doesn't improve the board much. A 7 of spades comes out, and I'm just gonna go ahead and jam here in case our opponent is on the flush draw. With how much he has behind, I don't expect him to fold for this amount. We're about evenly stacked. I have him covered by 14, and if he does have a king, he's probably not folding either, so might as well get it in now. A 6 of clubs peels on the river, which kind of scares me, but then our opponent shows us king deuce offsuit. Wow, was not expecting that. Not sure what he thought I was check raising with on the flop, but I will take it. About 30 minutes go by, and we have 9-10 offsuit on the button with 480 in our stack. I think this is the first time we've switched hands without losing $100. I decide to limp in here just because I haven't seen any boards for a while, and I'm starting to get a little bored, so we definitely don't want to fall asleep in our chair here. So we're off 4 ways to this flop with 2 of our friends. We got Jeff and Yama involved here. Jeff checks in the dark, and the action gets over to me. We have second pair with an okay kicker. So I'm gonna go ahead and check it as well because we don't really have that great of a hand, and the check gets through. So I'm not expecting a lot of people to be holding a queen here, otherwise they would have bet with 4 people. I go ahead and fire out for $10. I don't think that 7 improved anybody's hand here, so we're off to see a river heads up with Yama, and now a 6 of hearts peels off on the river. I'm not quite sure if we're good here anymore. I'm just gonna go ahead and fire out for 20, and then we get raised. This sucks. It's always hard to make any sort of call when there's a 4-liner to a straight out on the board. He could also be doing this with a missed flush draw. As I'm trying to put Yama on a hand, he goes ahead and shows me that he's holding a 5 of spades, which puts me in the blender. I don't think he's playing 5-8 suited, and he's not holding 2 clubs, so the 2 hands I put him on no longer make any sense, so I think we have to pay and find out.
For the vlog.
5-6.
I got soul red.
Sorry for the technical difficulties there. We dropped our camera in the middle of that, but Yama ended up throwing his hand in the muck after we called anyway, so we never found out what that second card was. Luckily, our 9 was good, and we scoop another one. A few minutes go by, and we find ourselves in another pot here. We got 502 in the stack. We are on the button, and we are a bit short-handed at the table at the moment, so we're going to widen up our range a little bit. We have the cutoff raising up to $15. I go ahead and put in the call with pocket 7s here. We get 1 more caller on the big blind, and we're off to this flop 3 ways. The dealer throws out deuce 4-5 with 2 spades. The big blind checks, and then the pre-flop aggressor leads out here for $20. I don't necessarily want to see another card. We're beating this board. I'm gonna go ahead and put in a raise here to about 60 bucks, which is about the size of the pot right now. I lied, it's $65, the size of the pot, basically off by 1. The big blind puts in the fold, and then the player in the cutoff enters the tank here. I think he's trying to put me on a hand. I thought he might have been on ace X, which would have had a gut shot plus 2 overs to this board. Very possible that he still has that hand and thinks I'm just full of it, or I'm betting some sort of draw. But the longer that he's thinking, the more I'm thinking he might have a pocket pair also beating the board, but eventually he ends up putting in the fold anyway, so we don't have to sweat it out for too long. I don't know if our 7s were actually good if we would have gotten to showdown, but we managed to scoop this one anyway. Moving on to the next one, we got ace queen again on the button. Our stack is doing okay. Looks like we're doing a better job of holding on to our chips compared to the start of the session. I go ahead and put in a raise to $25 here, trying to thin the field once again. And then the fireman puts in the call. A little bit of context before I roll the clip. Margot lost her card protector to this particular player earlier today. She tried to run a massive bluff and included her card protector in the bet as a joke, but then he ended up calling and she gave it to him, so we've been trying to win it back since.
It's time to come for the pip-lup. It's here.
Yeah, put it in. We need redemption. Gotta win it back.
Damn, that'd be a good,
That didn't help me at all.
video.
Come on, man. I need to win my girlfriend's little Pokemon bag. Okay.
My little raccoon.
15?
Is it the rack?
Okay.
I thought it was a
It's
penguin.
like he was calling a raccoon earlier.
No, it's a little, it's like a little dog almost.
Go ahead.
Let's check. I have ace high. That was good.
Does he get the movie now or?
No, this was never on the table. Well, we tried. We didn't get there, and we almost lost ours in the process. Definitely don't bet your card protector, guys. All right, so we are on the small blind with 474 in our stack. It looks like the under the gun player, Mr. Yama, puts $10 in for a straddle. Wow, absolute mad lad. He's got about 60 and some change behind, straddling 10 bucks under the gun. Some major cojones on that guy. A couple of people limp in for 10. The action gets over to the button, who ends up folding, and then we look down at Cowboys yet again. Second time this session we pick up kings, and now I am in a pickle. I don't want to go for value here. There's too many people involved in this hand. There's already enough money out there, but the only person that's going to call the all in here most likely. But if we raise too big, the only person that's probably going to call is our boy Yama, and we don't want to stack the man, but it is what it is. This is poker. We're not going to slow play these kings and then get popped by something stupid. So I go ahead and raise to $80. Yama calls, of course. It gives me the look as he's grinning, and then the rest of the table gets out of the way. Oh, I lied. We have one potential customer, and he molds it over for a couple seconds here, but it doesn't take too long for him to end up putting in the fold, and then it's just me and Yama.
How big's your pair?
Really big.
The biggest?
Second big.
You call? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's the ace. Oh no.
There's two of them.
Oh, I had an out on you.
Queen jack. My heart dropped when I saw that ace. I thought for sure he had an ace here, but somebody probably folded it. Not the best run out for kings, but definitely a good run out considering Yama's hand. RIP to the boys. Felting your homies is always bittersweet, but scooping a pot always feels great. Moving on to the next one. We're keeping it consistent with our intervals in between these big hands. We got an open for 15, a call for 15, and we have a mystery hand here, but it looks like we're going to raise probably a substantial pocket pair as per usual. So we go ahead and bump it up to $60, trying to isolate here and thin out our opponent's ranges a little bit. We got one caller and then the fireman. Oh, is it time? Are we coming back for the piplup? I don't know. He's looking a little suspicious right now. Looks like he might be trying to go for a raise here. I don't even know if we should be worried or not. We don't know what we're holding, but it looks like he's just getting calling chips. So he counts it out, but then hits us with the double take once again, giving us another quick look before eventually sliding him in the middle. Not sure what that's all about. Anyhow, we're off to this flop three ways, and the dealer puts out queen 9 deuce, 2 clubs and a diamond. The action goes check check over to us, and it looks like we're gonna fire a substantial bet here. I suspect that we hit the queen or we have a pair, and we're taking advantage of the fact that the action went check check. I think anybody with a queen here would have fired onto this board, considering that there's 2 clubs. Also, 2 Broadway cards could have a potential draw here with some sort of gut shot. Villain number 1 doesn't seem too pleased with this bet sizing. He quickly taps the table as he throws his cards in the middle. Villain number 2 also throws his hand in the middle, and we show pocket 10s. So definitely a bit of a sweat there. Somebody could have been slow playing the queen, but with a pot this big, I thought it was unlikely. All right, so we got a feature hand. We got our buddy to our left, Dopey, all in with pocket kings. There was a raise, a re-raise, and then a shove with 3 callers. So we have a massive $500 pot to start us off. Good luck to our homie Dopey. Hopefully his kings hold. And right off the back, we see the ace in the window. There's a jack and 2 hearts with the 7. Not the greatest flop for Dopey, especially into 3 different people. There's a high chance somebody's holding an ace here. The action goes check, and then villain number 2 leads out for about $30 here. $30 into a pot of 500 seems a bit suspicious. Not sure what that bet sizing is. Then we got the fireman over in the corner that decides to min click it back to him for $60. Also kind of on the smaller side, but looks like he's going for some value here. Villain number 2 beats him into the pot once he announces the bet sizing, and we are off to the turn, which brings us the 10 of clubs. Now this is where stuff gets really dicey. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through all of this footage here. Essentially, villain number 1 checks it over to villain number 2. He aggressively states that he checks 2 or 3 times after that, does a little bit of table talking, talks to the guy that's already at the hand. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, are you still in the hand? And then continues with, you know, his oh no, I'm so weak story. The fireman decides decides to lead out for about $100 into this pot, and then villain number one just rips it all in immediately after that for well over $1,000. And then at this point, Mr. Fireman, thank you for your service, but you are now the one on fire and has no idea how to put this fire out. My guy tanks for a fat minute. I'm talking like 3, 4, 5 minutes. Understandably so. This is a massive pot, and unless I had the absolute nuts here, I don't think I'd be able to just shove it all in there for this amount. Whether or not the guy has the hand that he's trying to represent here is one thing, but since there's another player that's already all in behind, it's not like he's just gonna steal it. He's still gonna have to get there on showdown. So after mulling it over for a bit longer, he ends up putting in the call.
Come on, baby. Well, he voted for sure. Or okay. Jacks.
He did have a king queen. Oh my god.
Mr. Fireman turns over pocket jacks for the rivered bow. His opponent had started flipping over his cards, but then threw him in the muck. I believe he saw that he had king queen. I only saw the queen of clubs exposed, but I can't imagine he ripped it with anything else here. What an absolute suck out. Huge, huge, huge hand. Biggest hand I've seen to date here. Well done, sir. Going back to our own gameplay for the last hand of the night here, I've already decided that this is it. I decide to come along with our hot garbage. We called this $7. I'm not sure if this was a straddle or someone just opened for $7, but we have some even stacks here and we want to get some money in, and the flop comes out queen 4-10 with 2 clubs. We flop top pair with an okay kicker. Not really in the best spot here by any means. The action checks over to our neighbor who also checks it over to us. So with everybody checking around and top pair, I'm going to go ahead and just fire out here for about $20. Hope we can get anybody that doesn't have a queen to get out of here, or maybe even get some people with the 10 to stick around. So if action folds around, and now it is on the player to our right who also throws it in the muck. We're going heads up to the turn. The turn brings us a 6 of clubs, which could be a bad card. Luckily, I think this player is pretty tight and is probably holding a queen. So this actually might be a great bluff card for us. So there's about $75 in the pot here. I want to find out where we're at. So I'm just going to bet about, I'm not sure what amount that was. I counted out, I think 60, and then grabbed maybe 20 more. So it looks like about $80. Our opponent folds right away. We snag this pot, which I think puts us a little bit over 600 for now. So we're overall up on the session. This is a good spot for us to stop here. So I start chipping up, getting my chips into the rack, grab some B-roll footage to get a shot for the vlog, and my boy Yama snags the camera from me.
Some rack play.
Last one.
Show them. Show them.
There you go, Joe.
You got your Jose waiver here. Behind you.
I got the handheld for the last.
Jet. Run it. 15.
Don't get greedy on us.
65.
Jesus, you're a savage.
Money.
Oh, big bet, dude.
Thank you. I think everyone had to run.
There you go. Good job. Thank you.
Savage. I thought he was folding. That's why I went up to his face.
What a great way to close out the session. We went straight to the cage after that hand as promised and took our profits home.
That was quite the session. Really had to force some hands this time, but a winning session's a winning session. All right, let's jump into the stats. Okay, so the last vlog, the video was on the 6th, and we played quite a few sessions after that. The Shumash Casino, which once again, to those of you that haven't been watching and following along, they do not allow us to record. So I try not to even bother. I could try to get some pictures or, you know, do hand reviews, but it's just way too much work. So I usually just wait until we play somewhere where we're allowed to record. Anyhow, quickly breaking down the sessions, it looks like on the 7th, we were up $240. On the 8th, we were down 200. On the 13th, we made 250. On the 13th, we lost 120 and then 125 here at Outlaws. We profited $305. Breaking down that session a little further, we bought in for 400, originally the 300, then that $100 reload, cashed out 705. It was actually 710, but we left a $5 tip, so it only count the 705. Don't put my tips towards the profit because then the numbers get skewed. And that was from 5:30 to about 11:40, so about a 6-hour session, not too bad. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the graph, and this is the vlog's history. So we had a big dip at the start, not the way we want to start off, but that's poker. After our big win on the 6th, we jumped from 650 up to around 1800, and we've been swinging back and forth right around the 2100 mark, and this session put us up to 23. Not bad overall for the month of January. Well, my beautiful degens, thank you for stopping by and checking out the videos. As per usual, if you made it this far, please like, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you next Thursday. Peace.